Which project?
Good morning. All right, the time is now 10:02. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Welcome to the CRTPO Technical Coordinating Committee meeting. The date is July 10th, 2025. We will start with introductions around the table to my left, and then we'll move into the audience starting in the left.
Rich Hoffman, Iredell County.
Heather Maloney, Town of Huntersville.
Sophie King, Town of Mooresville.
Matt Kirkendall, City of Statesville.
Emily Hines, Village of Wesley Chapel.
Aaron Tucker, Town of Cornelius.
Bjorn Hansen, Union County.
Todd Huntsinger, Indian Trail.
James Kelly, Town of Waxhaw.
Bryson Hester, City of Monroe.
Justin Russell, Town of Stallings.
Travis Johnson, CRTPO.
Liz Babson, City of Charlotte.
Brian Horton, Cats. Dave Campbell, Bicycle Focus Area, Charlotte DOT.
Diane Thomas, Public Health Focus Area, Mecklenburg County.
Neil Banneker, NCDOT Division 12.
Theo Gatea, NCDOT Division 10.
Wynn Cook, Greenway Focus Area.
Travis Morgan, Town of Pineville.
Andrew Golden, Town of Davidson.
Megan Green, Mecklenburg County Air Quality.
Dana Sujanki, Town of Matthews.
Steve Fry, Town of Mid Hill. Neil Burton, PRTPO.
Richard Pagan, Pond. Olin Dalhousen, Pond and Company. Andy Mont Cats.
Okay, Board of Cats.
Martin Gallus, Charlotte Daily. So the better than around all that.
DOT Division.
Scott Miller, NCDOT Division 2.
Amy Shaw, Nate.
Must be law school level assistants.
Thompson, CRTPO. Judy Danvers, CRTPO. Jennifer Sanford.
Snyder, CRTPO.
First Vision, CRTPO. Gulf Coast, CRTPO.
Candace Roy, Charlotte Planning.
All right, and again, welcome everyone. We will adopt today's agenda. You see that on the screen. Are there any changes to the agenda today? Hearing of no changes, may I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
And a second? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you. And now we have a consent agenda for today. May I have a motion for the approval of the June 5th, 2025 TCC minutes and the Coordinated Public Transit Human Services Transportation Plan?
So moved.
And may I have a second? Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, we have one business item for our meeting today. And so today we're going to hear from Travis Johnson on the draft 2028-2037 TIP development process, also known as NCDOT prioritization 8.0. Oops.
Thank you, Liz. Today we're going to go over for prioritization 8.0, the request being made of the TCC to make a recommendation to the CRTPO board. We're going to go over our project inventory, how projects were selected, and then schedule for the milestones coming up for P8. So the request today is to recommend that the CRTPO board open a public comment period on the draft prioritization 8.0 project lists. So now we're going to do an overview for how the project inventory is created and how it fits in for prioritization 8.0. I don't know why there's a 0.0. So this is the point is in the process is when we identify projects. The prioritization process is a data-driven process, and the results guide the funding for programming into the Transportation Improvement Program, or the TIP. And again, the TIP is that 10-year funding window of projects that are what we're going to see for our region. For the TIP and for prioritization, we submit projects for 5 of the 6 eligible modes, the 6th one being ferry, which is not in our region, but we do aviation, bicycle, pedestrian, highway, rail, and public transit. Inside of the modes, each mode has projects that fit into one of 3 categories, either carryover, holding tank, or a new project that is submitted. Carryover projects are automatically evaluated in the next cycle and do not count towards our overall submittal limit for the MPO. They're either in the current SIP but not selected for delivery. Delivery, again, being that first 5-year window. They have an active or completed environmental document. They're a sibling of another project. So that's when you see a project number, thinking of the one I was thinking of a lot is U2509, which was US 74. There's like an AA, an AB, an AC. So those sibling projects are automatically resubmitted as part of that. And then any committed projects scheduled for delivery that was in the current 2024-2033 STIP. Those all get counted as carryover, and they are eligible to resubmit without counting towards our overall submittal slots. For holding tank projects, they may be evaluated in the next prioritization cycle, but they do start counting towards our submittal allotment. These were submitted in a previous prioritization cycle, P6, P5, P7, and do not qualify as a carryover project. So they didn't meet any of those qualifiers for a previous screen. And they may be retained or dropped specifically for highway based upon their MTP consistency. For new projects, for the highway projects, new projects are selected based upon the MTP horizon year and score. If a project is not in the MTP, then it would not be selected for the CRTPO for prioritization 8.0 for highway exclusively. And for non-highway projects, requests are made to member agencies and organizations, and then you may submit those to us for inclusion in our list. Carryover projects, again, do not record our committal slots, but if you elect to not resubmit a carryover project, we do gain an additional submittal slot. So for this prioritization cycle, we have the reduced 34 slots that we're allowed to submit. And so if one of the carryover projects was elected to not be submitted, that number would go up only for this prioritization cycle, but we would not get penalized by choosing not to have a project be reconsidered. So how projects were selected for this cycle? For non-highway projects, we did a call for projects. All the carryover, holding tank, and new projects for all the non-highway modes did not exceed 34 submittals. So again, because these not exceed the number of slots we have, we're just going to resubmit everything that was shared with us. The airport submitted projects, the trade agencies submitted projects, some of the member jurisdictions submitted projects. But again, we were well under that 34 submittal slot for most of the modes. Closest one we came close to getting to 34 was bike ped. But after some communication with the jurisdictions, that project list is reduced more so. But again, we don't need to rank these projects at this point because they can all be submitted. They don't use up our submittal slots. And again, if you scan this QR code, that'll take you to the webpage where you can see the list. For highway projects, we did exceed the overall number of projects for consideration. So if we had more than 34 projects to be considered in this process. So for carryover projects, as we stated earlier, we are resubmitting all but one project, and that is at the request of the jurisdiction. So we will get 35 highway submittal slots instead of 34. And so these projects will then all these projects though will just get resubmitted. They don't count towards our submittal slots, and they will be ranked in the process. There we go. For holding tank projects, the holding tank project list was compared to the draft 2055 fiscally constrained project list. Again, that fiscally constrained project list is where we've said we would like to see money spent from 2026 to 2055. And the main funding mechanism for the MTP is the TIP. So we compared that priority list of projects to what was in our holding tank project list. And it's because FHWA requires that the MTP and TIP project selection process align, we went through that list to see what projects were in that fiscally constrained list. And then those are the projects in the holding tank that we are recommending for resubmittal. So again, projects remained in the holding tank list if they were in the draft fiscally constrained list. And then so they're not being recommended for resubmittal. First is if it's in the draft first 5 years of the 2026, 2035 step, it means it's funded. If you have the project funding through the discretionary project, we're obviously not going to resubmit that project because it is funded through a different means, not through the TIP process. If it was not submitted to the 2055 MTP, we did not resubmit it. And then again, if it was not included in that fiscally constrained project list, we're not recommending for submittal as well. So new projects were added to the project list, again, based upon score and horizon year in that fiscally constrained project list. And that is how we completed, on the list, you'll see there were 35 projects total for resubmittal. So again, we get the 35 because we had the one carryover project that was elected not to be resubmitted. And you can see the project list on the webpage. Again, the QR code will go to that webpage. But if you go to crtpo.org and go to the prioritization 8.0, all the lists are there and interactive maps and PDF maps as well. For the public engagement period, we're going to solicit feedback through email, social media, the website or webpage, and then coordinate with you, the member jurisdictions. So I hope, again, you can help us raise awareness for this comment period. As we review the 2055 MTB Fiscal Exchange project list, we're also going to be looking at the comments that project list is receiving because a lot of the projects will align with each other. So we'll share any comments that come for the 2055 MTB project list that need to be considered as part of the feedback for the P8 project list. We'll also share a summary of the public comment at the August TCC and board meetings where we'll ask for an endorsement of that list for the September submittal. And then we'll post any updates to the CRTPO P8.0 webpage. Project list modifications can happen from the CRTPO board based upon public feedback. So that's why public comment is such an important part of this process. Also, as the MTB physically constrained project list, if that is updated, we'll probably want to consider updating our project list. So if a project gets removed or something changes with that list, there's the potential it needs to be reflected in the project list for P8. So that might be another reason to consider updates. And then any updates that we make will be shared on the P8 website, and we'll provide an update at the August meeting. So moving into schedule for milestones, we're here today to ask for the recommendation for public comment period. We'll ask the board to open it on July 16th. We'll then go through our 14-day public comment period. We'll then ask for a recommendation of the project list in August, and then all projects have to be submitted by September 30th. After all the projects are submitted, they'll go to the spot office for review and adding project scores. And so that'll go until April of 2026. Then from June to December in 2026, we'll be assigning local input points. And then in spring of 2027 is when we anticipate the final scores coming out and then the final draft STIP being released in summer of 2027. So again, with that, the action is requested to recommend to the CRTPO board open the public comment period and the draft prioritization 8.0 project list, and I can answer any questions anyone might have.
All right, thank you, Travis. Any questions? Okay, with that, may I ask for a motion to recommend that the CRTPO board open a public comment period on the draft prioritization 8.0 project lists?
So moved.
And a second? Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you, Travis. Okay, our next item, we're going to hear from Neil and Merritt, and we're going to get a 2055 MTP update.
Morning, everybody. Just a agenda for our presentation. This is really focused on phase 2 of public engagement, which began last month and will go until July 19th. Merritt will provide an overview of that. I'll provide a brief touch point on the fiscally constrained project list, which is the focus of this public engagement. And we'll close out with some of the ongoing activities and a look ahead to action coming up next month. So as far as the schedule, first quarter of this year, we concluded the scenario planning effort. We finalized the revenue forecasts for roadway projects. As far as the congestion management process, we've identified the congested corridors. I'll provide a little more detail about that process within the MTP. Project evaluation, obviously, we've developed the fiscally constrained project list, and we're in the second phase of public engagement with the project list. And then we do have a third phase of public engagement that we anticipate coming to the TCC and the board with the request to open towards the end of this calendar year, which will really be focused on the draft report, which is a roll-up of all of the activities associated with the MTP to date. And that will take us out to a projected adoption date of March of 2026. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Merritt McCulley. He's going to give us an overview of what we're hearing and seeing regarding the second phase of public engagement.
Thanks, Neil. Good morning, everyone. I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator for CRTPO, and I'm really excited to share about what we've done so far in Phase 2 of public engagement for the MTP. We still have 10 days left, so there's still a lot more time for us to do more, but we've done a lot in the past few days and even the time before. As many of you know, the public comment period opened June 19th, but before June 19th, or July 19th, excuse me, June 19th. There was quite a bit of work that the team put in to ensure that we were talking to stakeholders, different nonprofit groups, business associations, to see this is something that's coming up this comment period, so it wouldn't catch anyone flat-footed, and so that we would have people readily available to partake in some of these activities that we had going on. So today I just want to talk about some of the things we've heard in the past few weeks and showcase the process that we've employed in order to engage residents on the MTP. And so some of these activities have been digital in nature. Even when we're out in the community, what our engagement usually looks like is an interactive map in which folks can click on the corridor or the project that they want to learn more about, and they can give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down in the tool that Kimberly Horn has developed for us, and even give a survey that is co-located with that map in order to give more qualitative comments. And so those we share at our pop-up events as well as on social media and on our website. We also have equity focus groups that are more focused toward populations that have traditionally been excluded from the transportation planning process that we really wanted to get opinions from. So I've talked about our calendar for pop-up events previously, as has Neil, but just as a reminder, these are some of the events that we've been at so far. The black line shows where we're at today. So we went to Mad Miles Run Club this past week, had a packed house. I don't know if anyone's ever been there, but it's hundreds of people every week, and a lot of them had great comments to say about transportation. We started off the public comment period with a couple of Juneteenth festivals and then went on to some of our regularly scheduled farmers markets to get out into our jurisdictions aside from just Charlotte in order to get a broad range of comments. And so coming up in the next few weeks, for the rest of the public comment period in the next 10 days, we have Charlotte Eagles Block Party tomorrow. So that should be a good time, as well as a massive community give back to school festival with Champion House of Care, as well as another time at Mad Miles Run Club, and a new event that we just recently added since the last time we spoke, which is an event in Iredell County. We really wanted to make sure we got that coverage, so we're attending a cruise-in over in Iredell County, which the last event they had over 400 cars attending. And so we figure people who like their cars probably have a lot to say about transportation. So looking forward to that event as well in Mooresville. And so I could tell you about our pop-up events, but probably better to show you. So here are a couple of, a handful of the events that we attended, including 3 farmers markets and 2 Juneteenth events. You can see Neil chatting with residents at the Davidson Juneteenth Festival, Curtis talking with someone at the Union County Farmers Market, myself at the University City Arts Festival, and Bob talking with the family over at the Huntersville Growers Market. So showing not just the broad range of activities and geographies that we've engaged in, but also that this has been a true team effort. So shout out to the whole team for helping out with the engagement process and making it as best as it can be. So in addition to the pop-up events, we've hosted equity focus groups in collaboration with Kimberly Horn and Civility Localized, at various in-person locations, trying to be at locations that are frequently used by the community, especially libraries, as well as having a couple of virtual events as well. These focus groups give residents the opportunity to have more time to give qualitative information about their concerns regarding the projects that are on the fiscally restrained project list, as well as general concerns they have about transportation in our region. And so we still have 3 left, including a virtual one to accommodate for people's schedules and locations, as well as an additional one in Union County in Marshville, and another virtual event in Spanish. Some additional engagement opportunities that we've taken part in are stakeholder meetings to make sure we're talking with people who have a special interest in a certain part of the transportation process. So economic development, for example, looking at employers and what concerns they might have as far as transportation and what projects are important to them. Moving people and goods, thinking about freight and even emergency services, those in which where the transportation infrastructure is important for them to do their jobs, and sustainability and mobility as well. We had a couple community presentations at WUMA in Monroe, as well as with Freedom School Partners coming up next Monday, which will be a youth event that we're very excited about hosting at the Urban Design Center in South End. So very excited about doing that. I had a radio interview with 102.3 Latina this past week, which has actually been recently rebranded to 102.3 Caliente, but that went really well, and we were really excited to have the opportunity to engage with the Spanish-speaking population in a non-in-person setting, because from the conversations we've had with stakeholders who engage with those populations, overwhelmingly the feedback has been that in-person events have been less attended recently, and that this would be a way in which to engage that population more effectively. And then, as always, residents are free to speak at the CRTPO board meeting this month. So this graph here shows a bit of the quantitative aspects of what we've heard so far on the roadway projects, intersection and transit projects. And so you can see the number of project likes and dislikes for each one. Like I said, residents had the opportunity to click a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and even give more qualitative comments in there, as well as fill out a survey. When you look below the graphs, you can see the total comments and the breakdown for each county. And so some of these make a little more sense, with the majority of the transit comments taking place in Mecklenburg County, where there's more transit, and then some of our roadway projects getting more comments elsewhere. And so I can say that qualitatively we'll be able to give more of a summary of what we've heard once the comment period has ended. And we've heard a wide variety of comments of people who are supportive of a certain project, of a very specific project, or supportive of a certain type of infrastructure. People who think that road widenings are needed, and others who think that they're not as effective. And so we'll be, just as an example, so we'll be wrapping up those comments to deliver coming up. And I will pass it back to Neil to talk about the fiscally constrained project list.
Thanks, Merritt. That was his debut presentation to the TCC, and I can say he did a great job with that. So good job, Merritt. So now, just to remind everybody how we got here, process to date with the project list. We established the roadway ranking review committee back in January. We received and reconciled project submissions from your jurisdictions. We conducted the tier 1 evaluation and then identified the tier 1 and tier 2 cutoff. We worked with the R3C to develop the tier 2 scores. Kimley Horn produced the cost estimates for projects, and we arrived at the draft fiscally constrained project list that the TCC recommended to the board that they opened the public comment period last month. So just reminding you all how we got here. And then ongoing activities. This afternoon at the Bike Ped Work Group, we're going to be reviewing the draft scoring framework of the Active Transportation Corridors tool. This was initially developed with the 2050 MTP using the Bike Ped Work Group, and we're working with the Bike Ped Work Group to refine this to a balanced approach of providing standard procedures for scoring projects, while giving flexibility for users to adapt based upon available data. Regarding the financial plan, we're working on the transit revenue projections, the discretionary grant program revenue projections, and then the division maintenance revenue projections. We are going to provide an update to the board in August. As far as the congestion management process, the congested corridors will be reviewed with the advisory committee next week. And then at the August 6th transportation staff meeting, we'll provide an overview of the process to identify the CMP congested corridors. And then we'll have TCC members following that meeting identify mitigation strategies for these corridors within their jurisdictions. So looking ahead, in August, we'll be requesting action of the TCC to recommend to the board that the 2055 MTP fiscally constrained roadway and transit project list is adopted. We'll provide a complete summary of public engagement, so you'll hear from Merritt again. And then the congestion management process will present the congested corridors and the associated strategies. The MTP revenues will present revenues for the non-roadway portion of the financial plan. And as I mentioned, we'll present the phase 2 of engagement results and the fiscally constrained project list once again. So that concludes our presentation. We're happy to take any questions that anyone has.
Thank you, Neil and Merritt. All right, any questions? Okay, thank you. You guys
Thank you.
got off easy this time. All right, next we're going to hear from Curtis on the post-census functional classification system review. Welcome, Curtis.
Hey, good morning. I do want to share some information with you on post-census functional classification system review. What is functional classification? Many of y'all are familiar with this. Functional classification is, won't read every word, but essentially it's an accurate roadway functional classification system, ensures that federal aid funds are allocated where they're most needed to enable people and goods to move fluidly through our transportation system. The system itself is categorized in the classification that you're familiar with, principal arterials, which break down into interstates, other freeways and expressways, and other principal arterials. And we have minor arterials, then major and minor collectors, and local streets. So that's what the system looks like. Why are we modifying the functional classification? Why are we going through this review? FHWA must review and update the system nationwide post-decennial census. So after each decennial census. This improves data management and reporting. It improves design and maintenance at the state and local level, or informs it at the local level. And federal legislation continues to use functional classification in determining eligibility for funding under the federal aid program, which tends to impact us the most. Functional classification updates. This is now something that's unfamiliar to the TCC. Y'all have done this periodically throughout the years. I've got updates in 2013 system-wide, 2019 Mooresville and Waxhaw submitted some modifications, Stumptown Road in Huntersville and Cuthbertson and Union in 2022. So again, we've done this out of kind of case-by-case basis. This is the first time in 12 years that we've done it system-wide for the entire planning area. So the process from TPD, NCDOT Transportation Planning Division, is kind of shown here, broke down into 5 major steps. They had to submit this plan, these steps, to FHWA for FHWA's approval. But their plan was to review urban areas where TIP projects exist, download and update DOT's functional class statewide shapefile. It's kind of a GIS exercise. And then our portion of this was to review and evaluate current local functional class networks, identify roadways proposed for modification, and then verify existing roadway data and enter desired modification or data or change to data. So submit the actual changes that we would like to make to the system. Their schedule, they had a whole schedule that started back in 2024. Kind of major milestones starting here at the beginning of 2025. And then they are planning to submit their updates statewide to FHWA in September of this year. So we also had some key guidelines we had to follow and some key constraints. All the functional class categories exist in both urban and rural areas. States needed to assign functional classifications according to how the roadway is functioning in the current year only for existing roads. For future roads, Those roads should be functionally classified within the existing system if they're included in an approved STIP and are expected to be under construction within the STIP timeframe of 4 years or less. So first 4 years of the STIP, you can include those functional classification. Anything further out just can't be included at this time or updated at this time. Where applicable, the same classification should be given to both the future route and the existing route it replaces until the future route is constructed. So those were some of the kind of guidelines and again, kind of restrictions that we were working under. So the change requests that most of you all submitted, we received 13 requests, well, 13 submittals, excuse me. 13 of you submitted change requests that resulted in 143 actual roadway requests. This has been kind of an iterative process from NCDOT TPD. They've kind of reviewed and given us feedback as we've submitted projects, and we've gotten a fairly current list now. And we anticipate final feedback from TPD by July 14th. So they've given us, again, some feedback on several portions of this list that we submitted. It's gone back and forth, and that's a good thing because we kind of checked in with them along every step of the way. So we don't anticipate a lot of changes coming back on the 14th. They're doing, again, kind of a final review of some of the network that they've already reviewed up to this point, and we expect to have, again, that final word on the 14th. So looking ahead, what we've already gotten is the local staff review from you all. And I thank you again for the work that you all have done in submitting change requests. Well, of course, we're bringing this to you for information today and board next week. We will request approval or your recommendation for approval in August, and then request board approval also in August. And then again, TPD will submit these change requests statewide to FHWA in September. So I'll stop there and see if you have any questions.
Any questions for Travis, Curtis? I interchange those two names all the
Yeah,
time.
both in and out.
I don't know why, y'all look alike.
Yeah.
I do have a question.
Yes.
So as you went through the schedule, you're going to come back and ask us to adopt this in August, but you're getting feedback from NCDOT after this meeting.
Yes.
So will you guys make sure in your Wednesday staff meetings to cover that information?
Absolutely.
Since we had submitters, probably from this committee that submitted roads for consideration.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, perfect. All right. I don't have any more questions. Anybody else?
All right.
All right. Thank you, Curtis.
No problem.
So we will hear from you again.
You will.
Curtis is going to give us an update on active transportation scoring criteria.
Yep. So do want to update you on our active transportation criteria. This is previously our TAP criteria. It's how we've always referred to it in the past, and kind of updating that and refreshing it a little bit. So the active transportation criteria was originally based on our old MUMPO bicycle and pedestrian criteria many years ago. We revised it, revised it a lot. Built it up for the TAP program in 2015 to meet federal TAP funding requirements. Essentially, we had to have criteria that addressed TAP projects specifically and TAP funding specifically. There were specific requirements that came along with that, and we adapted that to all of our active transportation funding and to our discretionary program. So we revised it in 2017, updated it again in 2021 to some minor enhancements here and there as we've gone through discretionary and other funding processes. So why are we updating it now? We have been compiling a package of recommended updates based on feedback, again, across multiple cycles of our discretionary grants. The Bike Competitive Work Group has periodically discussed these updates to better serve applicants, make it easier to read, easier to interpret, easier to submit, make it just make more sense when it comes to the scoring and prioritization of different criteria. We anticipate incorporating these updates, if they're approved, into the fall 2025 discretionary call coming up here in August. So that's why we're updating now. I'm going to walk you through some of these updates. I won't get too into the weeds because that could be a fun discussion, but probably not the discussion you all want to have today. First off, obviously, we renamed the bicyclist and pedestrian project scoring criteria to active transportation project scoring. We replaced the social equity criteria with DOT's Transportation Disadvantage Index tool. That's one that we talked about. We've talked about that for a while. The TDI tool came out last year, maybe even the year before last, end of 2023. But it's been a very useful tool. It's one that DOT is looking to maintain in perpetuity. They've got a lot of data, and it's statewide. We can compare our MPO planning area against the state, and it's a kind of more enhanced version of some of the equity and TDI or TDI type data that we've used in the past. So we're looking forward to transitioning to that. We revised our health equity category to health impacts, feasibility and cost. We removed the amount of available funding requested criteria. That was specific within TAP, active transportation, but there was also a larger criteria, essentially the same thing in the discretionary overall scoring. So we didn't want to duplicate that. We wanted to go ahead and kind of eliminate that and make it a little simpler. We also revised the TDI index score criteria access statement to specify access, kind of better define what access means for census block groups. Again, that's kind of getting down to a in the weeds thing, but want to make sure that's clear for submitters when they're scoring their projects. Then we revised text in the funding and match example to replace TAP with discretionary, just kind of a text cleanup activity. The last major update, we revised the criteria to meet rural and suburban contexts with fewer destinations and safety warrants. This is a big one that's been it's been an issue for a while. And we used a couple of examples in our work group discussion. Talked about projects in Davidson on Gray Road. I talked about, now I'm drawing a blank, but projects in, not Pineville. Well, a couple other projects. Steve, I think you're looking at this, but recognize where this is. I talked about the suburban and rural projects that just don't have the destination amassed in, that you tend to see in urban locations. So they've always kind of struggled to score well. Our criteria is always kind of destination heavy when it comes to the scoring. So we want to make sure that we can find some way to make those projects that just don't have those types of destinations, again, concentrated in areas, a little more competitive. So we replaced the transit center in our scoring, transit center destination with mobility hubs. That's now a high interest destination. We added regional trails to the high interest destinations. And then we added limited route alternatives, or a new limited route alternatives criteria to kind of get at some of those larger routes, larger facilities that span a long distance, but don't have the destinations that they're touching. Finally, we added some NCDOT TDI layers to our online criteria map. We also added CTP bike and ped layers to the criteria map. We updated destination definitions to include several new terms. And then we also did some other kind of minor text cleanup just to update the language in the policy. So, where we are on some of the next steps, of course, you're getting information here today, and we'll take it to the board as an informational item as well. We're going to request some action from approval, or request for action from you all, and then board approval in August. And then again, fall discretionary call opens up in August 2025, and we'll hope to be ready for the new criteria in that discretionary call. Yeah, so I'll stop and see if you have any questions.
All right, thank you, Curtis. Any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
I don't want to make work for anybody, but do you guys have any examples of how previous projects may have scored with the new criteria, just to see how things impact those?
Went through just briefly kind of a look at what the score would look like. It'll add, again, don't want to get too into the weeds, but I know you're familiar with it. So some of these projects will score anywhere from, let's say just ones that are actually funded, let's say just on an average year, maybe 150 to 190, something in the bike pay criteria. Some of these projects some of the suburban projects that were scoring well were around the like 120 something, 130 range, and just couldn't get up to the point where they're really competitive. So these, we anticipate adding 15, 20 points in some cases. We'll probably tweak a little bit more as we discover new destinations, because that's something that we've always kind of done with our criteria as we've gone through, again, cycles of discretionary. But we think we can get them to the point where they are adding a few more points to get them to the point where they're competitive. We looked at some of these projects and did not want to, our goal wasn't to, hey, we want these projects to now score this much so they can definitely get funded. We want to, again, just make them more competitive and give them some more heft in that scoring where they couldn't hit the destinations previously.
And then on the health criteria,
yeah,
I forget what you renamed it to, health index, health impacts.
We did.
Was there any revision to the scoring there? Or is that just a title?
That was just a title change. Frankly, it's, we've had some challenges. We received some official notice about equity and some of that language in many of our scoring processes. I'm sure y'all have seen some of that as well. So we want to kind of revise that a little bit and frankly take equity out and have it address what it really is. It really is health impacts. That's what the criteria measures. So change that name to
Yeah,
impacts.
that was one I was hoping to see change in. The health folks were pushing data that looked pretty good, that neighborhoods with sidewalk access were healthier people.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, don't want to change that. That was a useful criteria for us.
Thanks, Steve.
Other
Any
questions?
questions? Or discussion and comments? I mean, if there's anyone that serves on the bike and ped work group, maybe wants to weigh in and just add to that perspective. Steve, that's a great question because I think it's important that we talk about this from the perspective that Curtis and team are trying to make adjustments to make a more competitive process. So that we can bring projects forward based on some of that experience that we've seen. Maybe we had good projects, but they didn't fare so well through the prioritization.
Yeah, and I appreciate the work y'all did that to revise. I'm glad to see people listen.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Every now and then.
All right. Anybody else? Questions? Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Curtis, just curious, if a community elects to have a mobility hub added, a new one, how quick a turnaround is that to reflect to get the boost?
Oh, as quick as we can get it in GIS and add it to the map.
Great.
Yep. So we want this to be, as much as possible, we want it to be kind of a living document and criteria that we can update on the fly.
All right, one more opportunity. Any questions, discussion? Thanks again, Curtis, and thanks for the work of the bike and ped work group.
Yeah, really. Thanks to the work group for doing all this work. Appreciate y'all.
All right. Okay, cool. Okay, bringing us to our other reports. As always, you have Division 10 and 12 construction updates included in your agenda packet. Theo and Anil are with us today. Theo, I think you have an additional update for us.
Just want to update everybody on some staff changes at Division 10. Felix Obregon is now Division 10 engineer, and Zach Gardner is now the district engineer for Mecklenburg County.
And congratulations. Is Felix with us? There you are. Hey, welcome, Felix, and welcome to your new role. You're not a stranger to most of us. All right, who's next? Okay, Jennifer.
So Curtis teed me off nicely. Thank you, Curtis. And as scoring criteria changes for the bike ped, we'll update the workbook for you that we hand out for the fall call. So that's the reason I'm here. I'm starting to gear up for the annual call, which opens August 18th. And on August 6th, NCDOT will present our funding availability at TSM, but I'll also return the next day to TCC on the 7th and mention that number, but also at that time give an overview of more dates on the call, the schedule of events as far as like submitting applications, signing up for pre-submittal meetings, and then the closing of the call. At that time, I'll do a project status update as well. On August 20th at the TSM, I'll do a short webinar on how to apply for funds. Most of you are used to that. We have very few changes again this year, which is nice, to our applications. The Form 1 is changing just a little bit. It should be very intuitive, but it's just adding a couple lines, so easy. And then on the TCC workshop, so this is where things change a little bit this year versus last year. We dissolved the POC in March of this year. And so all of you will be invited to do a workshop after the TCC starting on November 6th. There'll be anywhere from 2 to 4 workshops. The first one is really just to review the policy, understand when the scores come out, what it's going to look like, and then we'll do a high-level review of what we call the application tracker. I think Bjorn might have helped start that. And so what that is a listing of all the funding requests with the funding availability that we have. So at some point, there's a long list of requests. We have so much funding and there's a line. So that's what that spreadsheet does. It's like if we fund this many of highway projects, we can only do this many of bike ped, vice versa. So I want to go over that while it's blank before there's a bunch of projects in there, because it'll get a little bit confusing if it's the first time you're seeing it. So that will be November 6th. Immediately after this, we'll stay in this room. Everybody's welcome to attend, probably not the audience folks, sorry. And we'll provide lunch. So thank you. On December 4th is when we'll get more into looking at the scores and looking at that spreadsheet and starting to develop a draft recommended project list. And then probably the week of December 12th, we might have a remote meeting. Sometimes what's happened is we've met, we've developed a list, and then we kind of go away and think about it, or you all, the POC used to go away and think about it, and then we just sort of revisit it. Yes, this is good, or we need to talk about something else a little bit more. So I think that week of December 12th can be remote, just to save you all from driving in here. And then if needed, again, after TCC on January 8th, we'd continue that discussion. Andrew Ventresca, who's the vice chair here, will facilitate the conversations. Of course, I'm the staff lead, so I'll be working with him closely behind the scenes. I think the last few years, we have had the board approve projects in either February or March. And so you can see in December and January, it kind of depends on how conversations are going, if we need to come back and convene and have little quick chats about, yes, we're funding this and not this, or whatever. So just wanted to get that out there, that this is coming up, and I'm going to walk you through this process starting at the next TCC. I'm interested to know if on the TCC workshops, and mainly just the TCC workshops, if you'd like me to send a calendar invite, or if you just want to put that, okay, I see some heads nodding. I'm going to go ahead and send a calendar invite to TCC members, blocking out your schedules for after TCC. If you are not interested, or you don't want to have my invite on your calendar, just go ahead and politely decline it. Otherwise, that'll be great. The more the merrier, and this will be helpful to have you see the process, relay it back to your board members, and I think this is going to go great. It'll be a little bit more challenging because there'll be more people, but it's basically all the same stuff. And many of you have been on the TCC already, so I would say maybe 33% or so are newer, but everybody's experience will help. So with that, are there any questions?
Questions for Jennifer? All right, thank you.
Good, thank you.
Excited to see how this new process works. So just continue to encourage folks to participate. Okay, last but, oh, wait, Curtis, you have another update for us for Bike and Ped Work Group?
Not really an update, just to look at the agenda in your agenda. We do anticipate having a update presentation from our consultant on our active transportation corridors. So looking forward to hearing that, hearing about some metrics for the tool this afternoon. So feel free to join us at 2:00. Any questions? Thank you.
All right, thank you. Last but not least, we've got upcoming issues. We're going to hear from special announcements instead of upcoming issues. We'll hear from Bob.
Morning, everyone. I just wanted to let folks know about some
Staff changes. We had some promotions recently that I wanted everyone to be aware of. All very good news here. I've been negligent in announcing some of these and I apologize. First of all, Travis was promoted from project coordinator to project manager in recognition of all the work that he does with the TIP and really all things TIP related, prioritization, et cetera. Of course, complete streets, managing the TCC. So we were able to promote him from coordinator to project manager, as I mentioned. Will, there's Will over there. We promoted Will from associate planner to planner in recognition of all the work related to SS4A, the comprehensive safety action plans, just the overall work that he does for us as an organization. And then last but not least, and the most recent, Neil was promoted from program manager to deputy division manager. This is a new title in planning, design, and development. As most of you know, CRTPO staff is housed in planning, and we were able to get that new title for our division. And this is in recognition of really, in many ways, the work that Neil has been doing, the excellent work Neil has been doing for a very, very long time, just running the operation. And now I can officially blame him where things go wrong. So my thanks to everyone on staff. I think we announced earlier this year, Jarrell was promoted from planner to project coordinator. So I think I got you in, Jarrell. So I wasn't negligent on that one, but great opportunities for all these folks to rise in the organization. And just I'm very fortunate to have a wonderful staff working for me. Great group of people. I think you saw it with the presentation earlier that Merritt did about public involvement. My thanks to Merritt and to Judy for a public involvement, public engagement effort like we've never done before. It's in all my years in this job, we've never had the capability of going out to the public like we did and are still doing for this public comment period. So my gratitude to everyone on staff. So just wanted to let everyone know about the good news. Thanks for letting me talk about it.
Thanks, Bob. And just a couple of comments. As someone that works very closely with Bob and his team and relies on them heavily in this role that I serve in as the TCC chair, you guys just do top-notch work. So I can't say enough about the quality of the team members that you've put in place. And as someone that's been here for a long time, I've got to watch it really over the last decade grow. So thank you. Thank you for your leadership as well. All right. With that, I'll pause for a minute. Any questions, comments from the group before we close out for today's meeting? Okay. As always, thank you for your time and participation in the important work that we do in transportation planning for this region. With that, we have completed all items on our agenda.